Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Let's do this. Another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, over the century mark now. As always, I'm telling you, I have a great show for you, and I always mean it because I really take the time to pick my guests, find them, make sure that we have great conversations, and this one is not going to disappoint you. Before I get there, I've been sleeping on Spotify, and I just want to let you know, if you're listening on Spotify, I appreciate it. You can do all the same things that you do on Spotify as you do on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. 5-star reviews, much appreciated. Following really helps us. Sharing with a friend, great. All of those things really help us, and I really appreciate it. This week, we have Amelia McGee. She is the co-founder of WIIRE, Women Invest in Real Estate. And if you go back to episode 68, after you listen to this, you can hear her co-founder, Grace Gudenkauf. These two are great together. You'll find them on social together, doing great things for women invest in real estate. I'm super impressed with them because they are both so young and doing so well and doing it all the right way. You don't need to hear anything else except the whole show. Let's go right now. This is episode 102 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Amelia McGee. Amelia is a real estate investor out of the state of Iowa, focusing on midterm rentals, who has scaled up a very impressive portfolio of at least 36 units, because I know sometimes it changes already. She is also the co-founder of WIIRE, which stands for Women Invest in Real Estate, with Grace Gudenkauf, who was our guest on episode 68. You'll see them a lot together on social, but now we have just Amelia. Amelia, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I didn't realize Grace was almost, 30 episodes ago?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. I think right at the time we moved we started to do 2 a week. So now it's like really going quickly. So yeah, she's 68, you're 102. And like I was saying to you before, I'm really excited to put more of the spotlight, one, back on you because we missed each other when we were at BPCon, but also more of a spotlight back on what you guys are doing at WIIRE, because I've just been so impressed with it. I love everything behind it. But I want to start with where you started, because I read that your first opportunity in real estate investing was a flip with your parents.
Yeah, it was. So let's start there.
Yeah.
That was back in 2019. And just a little about me personally, I am someone that always knew that I wanted to be self-employed. I just wasn't quite sure what that was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I'd always watched all the HGTV shows and whatnot. And my mom loves those shows too. And I thought, oh, that looks easy. Like I could totally flip a house. I'm handy. My parents are handy, whatever. And it took a couple of years, but I finally convinced my parents to buy a $30,000 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in a very small town in Iowa and flip that with me. And we each made about $30,000 off of that flip.
Wow.
And during the flipping process, because we were DIYing everything and I was still working a full-time job, we were working weekends and nights, I realized that flipping was not for me. Flipping was not going to be how I got rich. It was much too time consuming. And so I somehow stumbled across BiggerPockets during that time and realized that I wanted to own rental properties.
Yeah.
And so with my $30,000 profit, I purchased a triplex, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. But that is how I initially got started.
Yeah. And I mean, was it something that happened on HGTV? Like growing up, did you have any interest in real estate, or were you just like, wow, this looks cool? And then, like you said, you thought it was easy, and then we quickly find out it's not that easy.
Yeah, it was like, I would say I've never lived in a move-in ready house. Like my parents always bought fixer-uppers and did like the live-in flip kind of thing because they both are very handy and creative. So I'd always been around, renovations, but I'd never really like thought, oh, I could make money off of that.
Did your parents think like that though? Did they think like, hey, we're doing this like we're value add real estate investors, or like this is just how to get a good deal on a home and then make it nice?
Yeah, that's exactly what they thought. They really did not have any interest in being real estate investors. It's kind of been like me tugging them along the whole way.
Yeah.
And now they're retired. They weren't retired at the time, but they own a few rental properties with me now. And they really enjoy that because they retired a few years early. So they, in their mind, they see that as paying for their insurance until they can qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, whichever one it is.
Yeah.
So it worked out for them too.
Yeah. And I mean, so after you did the flip, you decided like, that's just too much. What was it about Bigger Pockets? Like, I remember for me, like I had been investing my whole life, but when I found Bigger Pockets, like this is like at least 10 years ago, I was just like, I can't even believe this exists. Like, how did I not know about this? Did you have that same feeling when you came upon it and was like, whoa, what a gold mine?
Yes, I was literally just going to say it's such a wealth of information. Like there's just so many resources there. And I guess if you don't know about real estate investing, like you would never know that it exists. But once you find it, you're like, oh my God, there's so many people sharing their stories on there that are just like you. And it starts to put into perspective how realistic it is to be a real estate investor.
Yeah. So how did you start there? Did you just start in the forums, kind of lurking around like,
Yes.
Iowa and what's going on in the area?
I was literally just going to say, I just used to do like Google searches and the forums would pop up. Like I would ask Google specific questions like, how do you buy a triplex or something like that? And like, of course, Bigger Pockets would pop up.
Yeah.
And then I literally was just a lurker for like probably a year.
Yeah.
And just absorbing as much information as I could.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy though for like our newest listeners who are just like haven't even touched the water. Lurking around the forums is a great way. You can read everybody's answers. You can start to decide like who's giving relevant answers, who's adding value to the conversation and who's not. And then eventually, was it just that you had enough confidence to post or reach out to someone because you felt like you had enough information in there?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is like my exact story. It was like, and of course I wanted to format my post or my questions so perfectly because I was like, I don't want anyone to think I'm an idiot. Like, you know what I mean? So it was like, oh, and another thing that used to bother me about when people would post and I would read on Bigger Pockets was they would always give like half of the story and then ask for advice. And it's like, I don't have enough information to give you good advice. So when I did my first post, like I posted all the numbers, like all the background or whatever, so that I could get like solid answers from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure it worked. I think it would be funny though, if all of us who started like around BP anytime like put out our first post like, because I don't remember, I probably did the thing where, it tells you to like, hey, post and let people know you're here. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'll just I'll do that. But yeah, how was the response to that first post? And then like, where did you take it from there?
Yeah, I think it was a good response. I got a lot of good feedback. And I feel like as investors, a lot of times we're very isolated in our real lives and we don't have other people around us to ask questions to or bounce ideas off of. And so that like became my safe space where I could talk to other investors who understood where I was coming from. And I really enjoyed it. Like I hate apps. I hate social media, which is funny because now that's part of my job. But like, I used to have the Bigger Pockets app. I would like check the forums, be active on there. I enjoyed reading other people's responses. So yeah, I really liked it when I was first starting out.
Yeah. And when was the first time you took like that type of idea into the real world to meet other investors? Was it meetups or was it something like an event or something that happened? And then we'll get to how you and Grace, I think Grace slid into your DMs if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she did. So we sold the flip in June of 2020 and I bought the triplex in October of 2020. And I started my Instagram account in November of 2020. I honestly have no idea why. Like, thinking back, I'm like, that was so brave of me because I'm from a very small town. It's where I started investing. Everybody there knows everybody, talks about everybody. And
Yeah.
I was so scared to like put myself out there because I was thinking, oh, people are going to be like, who does she think she is? You know, blah, blah, blah. She thinks she's this big investor. She owns one property. But I'd also been lurking on other people's Instagram accounts that were investors and just
Yeah.
absorbing their content. And I thought, well, I'm just going to make my own page and, you know, have fun with it. And it just kind of took off. I mean, I don't have a huge following, but I have a lot of close friends on there. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like I just had the bravery one day. It was actually my 29th birthday to start an Instagram page, and then met Grace through Instagram, and we started a free meetup, and then it just snowballed.
Yeah, that's awesome. But that is brave, especially at the time, because I think, like you were saying before, a lot of times for newer investors, there's no one to talk to, so you end up in the forums. But then to put it out there, you don't want to get the thing like, oh, well, you know, what does she think she's doing? You know, trying to be an investor, and then you turn around a couple of years later, you know, you would be laughing at that. But it is, I think, it's tough for anybody to do. So yeah, great job by you by doing that. And then I bet just the effort of making the profile and then making a couple posts, no matter the feedback, was like kind of freeing. Like, hey, this could be a future thing. Did you start to see it much larger then?
Yeah, I think it took probably 6 months. And I was honestly just posting with no real agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I was just posting to make friends. I wasn't posting to coach people or make money. And I think if I would give someone advice about like starting their own profile, it would be that, is to just like provide value before you try to sell something or whatever. But yeah, it took 6 months. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually like make this a thing.
Yeah. So when you and Grace finally met at some point, was the idea of WIIRE even in there, or you just started the meetup and then the WIIRE came from the meetups?
Yeah. So Grace slid into my DMs because she's also from Iowa and was like, oh my gosh, I've never met another female investor from Iowa. You look
similar
so cool.
age. Yeah.
Yeah, we're similar in age. And so we just started chatting. We literally chatted for probably like 2 weeks. And then she's like, hey, I'm starting this free virtual meetup for female investors. Do you want to be our first speaker? And I was like, sure. And we were going to be like happy if 10 people showed up. And I think like 30 or 40 women ended up showing up, which we were like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. We had so much fun. It was like so energizing. I can't even explain it, to like see all those women there that were our age. And she was, after it was over and it was so successful, she was like, hey, do you want to like make this a free monthly thing? And I was all for it. And so we did a free monthly meetup for probably about a year. And then WIIRE just kept evolving to what it is now.
Yeah, that's just a great signpost for anybody who's in a smaller area or thinks that there's no investors around. You guys were focused on women in like Des Moines, Iowa, and 30 people showed up. So no matter what town somebody's in, like all you have to do is, I've been saying this a lot recently, like for, you know, people's goals for 2024, if you want to meet investors, start a meetup. You guys didn't have a ton of experience when you started the meetup, but you're the conduit for the connections of other people. And then did you find that at that first meetup, were there other people who were active investors, or was everybody just new?
No, there were other people that were active investors. Not everybody was a newbie.
Yeah.
So that was awesome as well, because I think that if everybody's a newbie, you're not getting a ton of value out of it. So you do need a few people that have some experience and are willing to share their knowledge with others.
Yeah, and it goes to show, just putting the meetup out there. I'm sure you got a lot of feedback like, oh, I can't believe, just like when you and Grace, you know, met, when it's like, oh, we're both, you know, young female investors here. And then when you do the meetup, you're like, wait, there's lots more of us. And like, oh, you have 4 units, you have 6 units. Did that make the journey to not only, you know, start making more meetups, but also to really focus on investing as your business easier, just because you're like, look, there are all these people. We have a lot more support, you know, than you thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you are who you surround yourself with. And so as I was starting to surround myself with more and more investors who were doing just as many deals as I was, if not more, it started to become more and more realistic that I could maybe quit my full-time job and just focus on real estate full-time.
Yeah. How many units or doors did you have that were at least making money when you quit your job?
Yeah. So bought my first property in November 2020, quit my full-time job in June of 2021. The thing was, I think I had 15 doors at that time, and I had 11 more under contract when I quit.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
an 11 unit apartment building. And I was only making around $50,000 at the time. So for me, I didn't have those golden handcuffs. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't quite making as much as my full-time job, but I knew that I could get scrappy, and worst case scenario, if I needed to pick up like a bartending job or something like that to make ends meet, it was worth it for me to like give this thing a shot.
Yeah. And also with 11 more, which puts you at 26, you probably knew like, I'm going to need to be like hands on or else I'm going to be losing instead of winning.
Yes, exactly. It was like, yes, I wasn't going to be able to devote enough time to real estate investing to make it as successful as I had. So something had to give, and it was my W-2 job, which I was very happy to let go.
Yeah, you were always looking to do that. Well,
Yeah.
so let's talk money a little bit. What sources were you using for these transactions as you went? Because I think that's what everybody always worries in the beginning. Like, what am I going to do money wise? You obviously used the 30,000 as part of the first investment, but then what type of vehicles were you using to go from more properties and get more doors?
Yes. So that's really important. And I like to be very transparent about that. So the first triplex I purchased was $78,000 in small town Iowa. So that's a part of my story as well. The prices here are so much cheaper than a lot of other places. And so I used the money from the flip for that, but it was a value add opportunity. So I actually did a BRRRR on that property and was able to pull out almost all of my funds and recycle those. And I bought a quadplex like 2 months later from the same seller that I bought the triplex from, and used the same funds that I purchased the triplex with for the quadplex, which was awesome. Like, it was an inadvertent BRRRR. I didn't realize I was going to do a BRRRR. I'd heard of the concept through BiggerPockets, but never thought I was going to do that on my very first deal. So then I was tapped out. I'd used all my money. And one other thing I should add here is I was originally I also kind of got into real estate because I was really into the personal finance area.
Yeah.
I had paid off all of my student loans. I'd paid off my car loan. Like, that's how it started. And then I was like, how can I make more money? And BiggerPockets and real estate came along.
Yeah.
But so I was debt free too. So that's a huge part of the situation. And I was young, 27, 28. I was used to living like a broke college student. So my expenses were very low. So that all plays into it as well.
Yeah, I think you're maximizing what's available at the time. But in terms of the 3 and 4, when you bought that first one, the triplex, was it vacant or were there tenants in? Did you get them out? Give us a story on that, because I think a lot of people can make mistakes because you're wanting to do a BRRRR, but tenancies can play a big role, as you know, as you've gone to all these units.
Yeah, so somehow I had the courage to tell the seller that I was only buying the triplex if it was completely empty.
How did you even know that at the time? That's like professional stuff. Yeah, that's great.
I don't know, but I knew that I didn't want to inherit any of the tenants that he had because they were not good tenants.
Yeah.
And the units, I mean, just the condition of the units, I knew like those aren't the kind of tenants I want. And so he was okay with that. And which is also scary because I was so nervous when I closed, because now I had this triplex that had no tenants and needed work. It had no income. This was during the middle of COVID. I actually took a whole week off of work vacation and did the renovations like myself with some help from my dad, but was ripping out carpet myself, doing the whole thing, painted new floors. But yeah, it was completely vacant and I had it filled within a month of buying it. So that was a huge win. Yeah. The town I invest in really needs rental properties, which is nice because I very rarely have vacancies.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was empty. The bank knew that it was kind of a value add. And I'd kind of also just said, hey, I'm going to refinance this. Do I need to do the 6-month seasoning period? And because they were keeping the loan in house, they didn't require me to season for 6 months, which is why I was able to pull it out again so quickly after I closed.
What was that, a local bank?
Yeah, it's a small
Yeah.
local bank here in Iowa.
That's the best. I mean, has that been something that's been helpful to your journey? I think especially, I mean, this actually works in all towns, but those local banks can definitely give you a little more leeway on what you can do as long as they understand and they're in the same area.
Yeah, that's the only companies that I use. I have a credit union and a bank that I use now, and I've built enough of a relationship with them that at this point I can just really go to them and say, I need this much money.
Yeah.
Here's the numbers. And they'll be like, okay, you're approved.
Yeah, but I mean, that's amazing. I mean, you're not old. I mean, you're 31 now.
I just turned 32.
32. Happy late birthday. But like, to be able to walk into a place and have built up enough personal credit, just based on the deals that you've done and by what you're doing, to be able to get those funded is really important. And I think it's important because I don't think it's that far away from people as they think. It's just about this is, relationships and doing business the right way. It seems like you were really focused once kind of the light bulb went off and you said like, okay, no flipping. Now I'm going to get this triplex. You just seem to have kept going from then, right?
Yeah, I guess I just never looked back. And I think a lot of people get stuck in the rut where it's the analysis paralysis thing, where they're just so nervous to never get started that maybe they're not confident in their numbers or whatever the case may be. But I was so confident in running my numbers. I knew that there was no way I could fail. And I just kept pushing forward after that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you went triplex to fourplex, and then what did you do? You don't have to talk about all the deals, but how did you get up to where you're at now?
Yeah. So then I was out of my own money, and my parents enter the picture again.
They're like, "Ooh, wait, this does look interesting."
No, that's absolutely what happened. They were like, wait, you're making all this money off of these rental properties? Like, we want back in on that. And so we bought this dilapidated triplex that we found walking for dollars, is what I like to call it. My mom and I were on a walk. And
I love walking for dollars. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I was like, hey, that place has 3 electrical panels on the outside. I bet that's a multifamily. And so contacted the owners off the assessor site, bought that, did a burr on that, and just kept recycling. But they came to that deal with the money. And we bought that triplex for $48,000.
How did you even know, though, to recognize the 3 panels on the outside? Because I'm finding something very common between you and Grace. You both were extremely well researched and then confident in moving forward, but like way, way advanced for what normally people 20s to low 30s would be. Like, where did that come from? Is it studying, and what else helped you get there? Because these are things that, we're telling people who are 50 now, like, hey, did you look around the outside, or like, did you look in the basement? How did you know that was going to be a thing?
I can't even remember, but it has to be like the forums or just observing other people doing it on social media. I will be honest, I didn't read every single book out there that there was, even though I love reading, but I read for pleasure. But I think there's something to be said about being overly educated in the real estate world, because then you do get into the analysis paralysis, or it's like you just feel like you need to keep learning and learning and learning, and you never get to the point where you purchase something. And so for us, that wasn't the case. I don't know if it's just because we are confident people in general, but yeah, I think it was just, I saw that online, like, hey, when you're out driving for dollars, look for multiple trash bins or look for multiple electrical panels or gas panels. And then that's maybe a multifamily that you want to pursue.
Yeah. But that's just paying attention to the right things. Like you said, I think a lot of people get into analysis paralysis because they're like looking at everybody's Ferraris or, Lamborghinis, instead of like exactly what you're saying. Like, no, let me show you what a structural problem looks like, because that's where all the money is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, it's Jonathan. This is just a brief interlude to talk to you about Deal Machine. Listen, I've used Deal Machine, and I was crushing it with my Concerned Citizen postcard on Deal Machine. You can look that video up on my YouTube and find out how I did it. It works. Deal Machine works. I've had David Lecko, the CEO, on the podcast. So if you want a free trial of Deal Machine, the elite Driving for Dollars app, and I'm telling you, it works if you use it correctly, you can go to my link at bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. Now, bit.ly is bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. It's free and you'll be up and running in 2 minutes, and then you can figure out if you want to keep it. Let's get back to the show. So as you guys started to get WIIRE started, what was the kind of intake process for getting people to come to the meetups and then kind of getting that group focus? And then we'll get to where you guys are now, which I really love.
Yeah. So I would say that Grace and I each probably had about 1,000 Instagram followers at the time when we started the free monthly virtual meetups. And we were just posting on our social medias, and there wasn't really anything at the time like that. And so it was attracting a lot of the women who were looking for a safe space to share, their thoughts and opinions on real estate investing and their experiences. And so it was really just through Instagram organically, just, hey, we're hosting this monthly meetup. We have a speaker on whatever the topic was. Come and join us and learn. And yeah, and then it's evolved. Now we host retreats across the United States, which are like the total highlight of our year, getting to host those with other investors. And then we have a podcast now called Women Invest in Real Estate. And it's just been so fun.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the thing that you told me about the first meetup is important, because that feeling, I still think when I look at your social or when I see you guys, what you're doing, like that's the feeling I get when I still look at like, oh, you guys are having a new, retreat. Like it just looks like that still. So you've really been good at maintaining what you first had at that literally first, the baby meetup where you're like, we don't know if anyone's going to come. You're still taking that the whole way because it's obvious. So like if anybody's listening and they haven't followed, go follow WIIRE and both Amelia and Grace, because I really think that you're working inside a niche of when I know I talked to Grace at BPCon, but it's like, it's not just young women, it's just women of all ages at the retreats making like great bonding and then being able to get into that area because the retreats are small, right? They're like 15 or less.
There's like 15 to 17 women usually. And so many amazing, just not only friendships, but partnerships, private money, business opportunities have come from these retreats that are so organic. I mean, there's conferences out there, of course, but there's only so much time to spend talking to people at the conferences. And at these retreats, it's 3 full days. You're all staying in the same Airbnb. So it's just, there's no small talk. You get right into like the nitty gritty details. You really get to know these women. And now I have friends all over the country, investors. So if I ever wanted to invest in Augusta, Georgia, I know somebody there that could get me hooked up. It's so powerful to come to one of these WIIRE retreats and meet these amazing women.
Yeah, and you've built that real life trust. Like, I mean, a lot of us have made friends, like, through social media or through Bigger Pockets, but it really changes when you meet in person and you're like, oh, I could just call them, like you said, and say like, hey, do you want, I'm interested in your area. Let's just JV and do a deal there. And those are the things that I think maybe like newer investors don't understand just how important this like scale of just get on Bigger Pockets, like read the forums, then go to a meetup, then find a tribe, meaning a mastermind or a group or a retreat. And even when you pay for it, you're going to get way more out of it than you think, as long as you're into it. I don't know what you found, but I found that most people who pay for something in real estate investing and then say that it doesn't work, it's always user error. Even bad classes would work if you just did the work. It's just that a lot of people don't want to do the work.
I agree. And I almost feel like, and don't hate me for this, but sometimes people that purchase different courses or coaching, they're almost looking for someone to do it for them.
Oh, definitely.
And it's like that's why it never works for them.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but that's how a lot of coaches and people make their money, is these people that want someone to just hand it to them in a pretty package. And that's just not going to work. That's not how it works in real estate.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important for people to look for community. And then when you look at WIIRE, that feels like a community. It is. It's real and it's there. And I think you can see where there's collaboration and you want people working together so it's cooperative and not like contentious, which I don't understand how anyone ever thought that real estate investing was competitive. There's literally houses everywhere. Have you ever found in your, over the years, have you found the type of investor who feels that it's competitive and like, what, that's not a good fit for me or for, WIIRE?
Yes. Very rarely, but I do come across people that are very close-lipped, don't want to share information, share contacts.
Yeah.
And those aren't my type of people, first of all, but I feel like they're missing out on so many opportunities. They truly are. They think that they're protecting themselves by not giving out that information. But if you give more than you take, you are going to be rewarded tenfold, in my experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the transparency, like you were saying before, just disclosing sales price, how much you spent, helps people so much know the realities. Because if you can't be realistic with someone about what you spent, and you want to make it look like you made 100, but you didn't account, your mortgage payments, hard money payments, whatever it is, you're not helping anyone grow. And I think over time, people realize that most investors do want to help people as much as people think that's not the case. One, I mean, we all love talking about ourselves, but we like to give that in an information so it can help somebody else, take the journey the right way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And even I'll have people message me on Instagram or just talk to me in real life and say, don't you get scared sharing, the market that you're in or what you're paying, because other people are going to come in and swoop those up. And I'm like, no, I truly feel like there's enough to go around.
Yeah. And I am going back to the user error thing. I've always said people will say like, oh, why are you sharing like all your secrets on the postcards you write and the way that you write them and, those type of things out? I'm like, because nobody's going to do it. And if they do, great job. But like no one's actually going to do it. Because like you said, a lot of people who are just watching that for that reason just want it to take action themselves. I'm like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's not like I've created something that no one ever thought of before. I've just maybe changed some words around a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I think one of the questions that you had asked prior to coming on the show was like, what do you think the number one characteristic is for real estate investors? I think I put gumption, which is
I was just going to ask you that.
Honestly, because what you're saying is so true. You have to be able to take action and really want it and move forward with your ideas. You can't just think about it and think about it and think about it and drive yourself crazy. You actually have to do something.
Yeah. And I've always said, and I know you know this by now, that I really think that like the podcasts and reading books is awesome, but it's the mastermind and that meetup that really gets people going. Because when someone can show up to your meetup and then you can tell them like, hey, I have 36 units, they're like, what? Like, you're young, well, this is how I did it. That immediately, just knowing that someone just like you did it, makes it so much easier. That was kind of the way it was for you when you saw people who were doing like investing and you're like, wow, I mean, they're not any different than me. Did that help you kind of just get right going? You seem more motivated than the normal person, but it like, that's a helpful thing. Was that, did that work for you also as well?
Yeah, it really did. And I'm one of those people where it's like, if I have to try something, otherwise I will keep thinking about it forever. And I'll always wonder, would that have worked? And so, yeah, for me, it wasn't an option to not try it because I never would have stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
And, even now that I am investing, there's certain strategies like midterm rentals. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to be successful at that, but I knew that I had to try it. Otherwise, I would have thought about it forever, Same thing with the short-term rental that I just launched. I was like, don't know if this is going to work out. It's in a really small town and it's been extremely successful. And I was like, okay, good. I scratched that itch. I know that it worked. Like I can move on to the next thing now.
Yeah, I think let's definitely go down that rabbit hole because for short-term and midterm in smaller towns, I think the general perception is that like, how's that going to work? like people somehow associated all midterm with only travel nurses, like it could never work as in another way. And then short term is only vacation areas. How have you been able to do both midterm and short term? It's all in Iowa, right, for you?
Yeah, everything's in Iowa. My portfolio is split between Des Moines, which is the capital of Iowa, although still not like a huge city by any means, and a very small town in southern Iowa called Sheraton, which is my hometown. And Sheraton is where I have a couple short-term rentals and one midterm rental. And for the short-term rentals, there's people coming into town for family things, weddings, just visiting funerals, which is sad, but it's an aging population. Hunting, like deer hunting and turkey hunting, is really popular in southern Iowa. So I have hunters staying there, but it's not a destination, but people still need a place to stay.
Yeah.
And so that's been so successful. And then midterm rentals, there's a hospital there. So it actually isn't traveling nurses, it's traveling CNAs that I'm housing there because they need a place to live too. But you'll find in these rural communities that there's just so few options. If you can be like the only one, you're going to see great success, but it is a risk. You don't know if it's going to work out for sure. So it's important to have plan A, B, and C if you can.
Yeah, I found that with smaller towns having short-term or midterm, just using regular things like, Facebook pages local, you can get just as many bookings that way, because I think people forget when people travel together in groups or with families, like they don't want to stay in a hotel in a bunch of different rooms with no kitchen where they can't interact, no living room, no TV, that they can all watch together. I was doing short-term rentals 20 years ago. And that's how I didn't like to stay in hotels, because there's nothing in the room except the TV. It's boring to me. Like I don't want to go out to eat every single meal. And I think that's a mindset that you have to think of, where it definitely could work anywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, anywhere, as long as you're just giving somebody an opportunity to stay in a different way than like, a Hilton Garden Inn or something.
Right. And I'm someone that also trusts my gut. And I mean, I don't lean into that too much, but like if you have a really good feeling about a certain area, if you're from a small town, like, and it's going to be successful, like for me, it's worth it. Like I said, to scratch that itch. Like sometimes you just know things that other people don't know, and you need to lean into that,
Yeah. And I mean, that goes to, one of the benefits of real estate is multiple exit strategies. So, like, hey, let me try short term. If it doesn't work, I'll just put in a long-term renter, or I can sell it.
Exactly.
That's the greatest thing. And I think that's what's good about midterm and short term, because people have been like kind of crushing on it for a while in the good way and then the bad way as hedge funds started buying them up. But it's really just about what you want to get out of it. And if you can do it the right way, and if you're creating a hospitality business as opposed to like just a real estate business, because it's different. Have you found that with short term and midterm that it's all hospitality and caretaking of the consumer?
You know what? With midterm rentals, not as much. There still is an element to that, but it's not as much review based, especially if they're not booking on Airbnb or VRBO, to where reviews don't matter as much. But it still is very much customer service focused. Short-term rentals, absolutely. It's a hospitality business.
Yeah.
And I've actually found I really enjoy that. I actually really like it. I love design. I love curating beautiful spaces for people to stay in. And so I'm kind of moving more into buying a little bit more on the short-term rental side moving forward.
Yeah.
Which is funny because a lot of people are trying to get out of the STR market, but I've found a nice little niche, and like I want to lean into that, and I enjoy it. It brings me happiness to provide nice spaces for people.
Yeah, and I think that short-term rentals really, like, if you're a creative person, that like kicks it up a notch if you really want to like make it impressive for people. Because I know from staying in hundreds of short-term rentals over the last 25 years, the ones where there's like a basket waiting for me, or like everything's set up in a way, like I'm going to crush that review so well, post on social, do everything. And then it does, everybody's happy. And I think like that's the like midterm, you're right. Like, I don't think you have to be as creative, because you're thinking like more like, hey, this kind of like corporate housing, let's make it okay, but they're going to be working a lot. But short term, like people are coming in for 2 days, like you better have it you better have it nice.
Yes, exactly. And I love like the little touches, like the little basket or like just going above and beyond. And that really doesn't take that much extra work.
Yeah.
But I like making other people feel good and be happy. And like, I feel like those little touches with as a short-term rental owner, they make people happy. Like I love that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of times they're going to the short-term rental for a reason because it's short. So they're visiting family or they're going to do an event or they're doing something and they don't want to have to worry about, these extra things. And I think that's where short-term can really take care of, like the guidebook of here's where to eat. Like that's what I want. I don't want to figure it out on Yelp. I don't know, even where I am. And this is where I feel like as it's growing and like what I watch on social, like you're watching someone like, Rob from Bigger Pockets, like it's all experience based. And the more amenities that you can provide, the easier you make it for the guest, meaning that guest is going to come back or they're going to tell their friends organically, like, hey, you need to stay at this place, which helps you just kind of organically get more consumers later than just relying, on the major portals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't need to be in a giant destination market to be successful with short-term rentals. I'm investing in a town of 5,000 and I've been successful there. So you really can be successful with real estate anywhere because people need housing everywhere.
Yeah. That's really interesting though. A town of 5,000 and you have 3 different opportunities there. 1 midterm, 2 short-term or 2 midterm, 1?
2 short-term, 1 midterm.
Yeah, I think that's something for people to really think of because, I mean, one, when you've talked about your price points, the price points for these are accessible to really almost everybody. And then it's just about what do you want to put into it. But yeah, I agree. Even though everyone kind of was putting doom and gloom on short-term rentals, I just think that applies to people who weren't kind of treating them as hospitality businesses. Everybody else is going to be fine.
Absolutely.
No one wants to go. Hotels are going out of business too. So,
right. I never book a hotel. I solely book, short-term rental, Airbnb or VRBO when I travel.
Yeah, I have for 25 years and I grew up doing, short-term rentals then before that was even a thing. But I think it's just a mindset that I think did change a lot during the pandemic because people couldn't go on long vacations. So they were driving to these short-term rental opportunities and then realizing like, wait, I have laundry. I have a refrigerator. I can cook. I'm going to save. Like maybe my short-term rental is like kind of expensive, with all the fees, but maybe not because now I don't have to go out to breakfast every day.
Right.
I can just have cereal if I want, and then figure out what to do around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it's a single family home, you don't have neighbors in the hallway, like all those different things. So, and they provide unique experiences. There's so many amazing Airbnbs out there that are really cool. And, it's a little getaway to get to stay in them.
Yeah. If you really want to go down a rabbit hole, a good one on any social media is just looking at other people's like great Airbnbs or cabins. Like that's a well spent hour, especially if you want to get into short-term rentals, is to like you said, that's what motivated you. I really think like social media as a whole, I don't like, but I've always curated my social media to just only look at the stuff I like, barring the ads that are forcing me to look at garbage, every 3 posts. But that's kind of helped me because like you said, if you're just looking, this is all inspiration. It's basically like a live Pinterest board that I can interact with and then learn from. And now because videos like so much, just short form video, like you said, that one tip that you caught in like probably like a 30-second reel or TikTok just helped you buy a property because you saw what was on the outside. I mean, that's the value in it if people can, steer away from stuff that's a little bit more shiny.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what year did you log on to Bigger Pockets for the first time? I have a reason for asking.
I don't know. I wish I could have looked that up, but I would have to say it was probably around 2018, 2019.
Yeah. So now we're 2023 and you and Grace are actually writing a Bigger Pockets book. That's awesome. I know you can't talk about the whole details of it, but talk about the trajectory of how, like when you started in 2018, you make that first post on Instagram. Like, I'm sure you weren't thinking like, hey, in 5 years, this website that I found, I'm going to be writing a book, like with my best friend who I do investing all over and have a great community with. How did you get there in 5 years?
It's really hard to like sum up what an amazing opportunity it is and like how crazy and like awesome it makes me feel to be able to have this opportunity. But it really started with building a relationship and community on my social media, which I can't even believe. Thinking back to 2020 when I started my Instagram, I had no idea that I would be getting a book deal with BiggerPockets from that. So basically someone that had followed me on there and had actually come to Grace and I's free meetups knew someone that worked at BiggerPockets and put us in connection with them. And we started building a relationship with BiggerPockets over the next 2 to 3 years. We've done some YouTube videos for them. We've done some podcasts. And I think they liked us because Grace and I are both very authentic. We're both very down to earth. We like sharing our knowledge with others. And then basically they approached us with this book opportunity, which is on how to self-manage long-term rental properties, which Grace and I both do, although we're transitioning out of it into hiring our own property managers. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never, ever would have thought back in 2018, 2019 that I'm writing a book for, arguably like one of the biggest real estate platforms out there.
Yeah. Must be pretty cool though for your parents too, because it's like you guys did that flip together and then they're like, I don't want to do this either. And then they're like, hey, Amelia, wait a minute. When you get into this like third one, maybe we can dip back in. Are you guys now doing a few investments together, right?
Yeah. We have a decent sized portfolio together at this point. We probably own around, 15 to 20 doors. And my dad still thinks every deal we do is going to flop. And not one single deal has. I mean, he's your typical
sounds like a dad mode.
Iowa dad. Yeah, just very safe with his money, I would say. Doesn't want to lose money by any means, but who does? But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they're so proud of me, but it's honestly hard for someone that's not as involved in the real estate community. Like they're not really. They just, they do it on the side. But people don't realize how big BiggerPockets is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, BiggerPockets, like, that's so cool. We're so proud of you. How awesome. But like, I'm like, no, it's like the biggest deal of my entire life. You know what I mean? You don't understand.
I mean, didn't you send them some pictures from BPCon where it's just like an insane amount of people all just talking about real estate investing 24/7?
Yes. They do know. And my dad texted me the day after BPCon and goes, hello, my famous daughter, all capitalized each word, comma, like he sent like a very formal text. And like, oh my gosh, you're ridiculous. But yeah, no, it's surreal. And we're so thankful. And like, just, I don't know, it's wild. But yeah, that book comes out mid-April, 2024. So
awesome.
Yeah, if you're listening, go
be ready for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I really think that you and Grace are great examples for any listener who's listening who thinks no matter what age, like if you're not in real estate investing now, like you don't have to, it doesn't have to be that far away. You do have to be a long-term thinker for it to work, but like you can really go this far in just 5 years. I mean, you're proof of it. Grace is proof of it. Other guests that I've had are proof of it. And almost across the board, we're at episode 102. Most of my guests weren't even interested in real estate when they were younger, a very small percentage. So it doesn't matter when it comes to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also say that real estate doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You don't have to want to do real estate full time to still find great success with owning 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 or 10 properties. It can provide so much freedom to your life, even if you don't just want to make that your one thing. So don't feel like just because you see everybody else on social media bragging or sharing all of these cool things that they're doing, that means that you can't do it on a smaller scale that fits your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. I completely agree. Like, it's okay if you like your job and want to keep steady money. That's cool. You can also try out an investment property on the side. And no matter where you live, you can start small because there's a lot of areas in the United States where maybe there's not a million deals just waiting for you, but the price point for what you can get when you find something is pretty doable. A lot of investors that I've talked to have said this, because I know you said on your first one, you kind of knew it wasn't a huge investment. On your first investment, did you think like, well, if this all goes haywire, at least I kind of know, like, I'm not burning everything I've ever had, and you still had your job?
Absolutely. I know. Yes, that's exactly what I thought. And that's what made me feel even more confident with moving forward. I think my mortgage on that property is like $365 a month. So I was like, I mean, my insurance is like $100 a month and property taxes. So like all in, if it sat absolutely vacant, I was probably going to be bleeding $700 a month. Yeah. And I was like, with my job, I have no debt. Like I can weather that storm just fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing with real estate investing is like, think of the worst case scenario. Think, can you handle that? And then if you can handle that, stop thinking about it and just move forward.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's really like the best place for people to think about their first investment. Be okay if you lose it. There's almost no way you're going to lose it if you have good advice and mentors and people around you. You're going to make money, especially if you can hang on. But like, that's it. I mean, that's why it's such a great asset. And I think, from the way you started, you were really just looking for a way out of the 9 to 5 always. And then like light bulb came on after a flip that you didn't particularly love, but you did well on, and now 5 years later, like this is it for you, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm someone that knows there's more to life than working for somebody else. And I want to travel. I want to explore. I want to live my life to the fullest. And I'm so thankful that real estate investing is allowing me to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what's so important about the retreats that you do. You have 15, 17 people come to a retreat. It's a getaway for someone. It's a little bit of a mini vacation where all you can do is talk about real estate, bond, make connections. But it's like everybody's on a getaway. So you're kind of combining these things like our interests and also some time away and freedom. Because what everybody's really after with real estate investing is freedom. How much more free do you feel now, at 32 than you did before you did that first flip?
Oh, 100% freer. I play pickleball during the middle of the day. I love pickleball. I can travel whenever I want. I am in my 30s now. And, when you're in your 20s, you're kind of broke. You're just out of college. And now in my 30s, I'm like, I have a little bit of money. Like I'm confident in who I am. I'm just living life to the fullest right now.
Yeah, I think it's funny what you said, but really important that in your 20s, because of where you were at, you had paid off your debt. Like it was okay for you to live like a broke college student. Because that's how you save money. Like, that's okay. It's not like, only eat ramen every night, but also like if you're trying to save for your first property, you got to figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. And some people I don't think are prepared for that, but I wouldn't say you necessarily have to be completely debt free to invest in real estate, but I think you need to have a really solid understanding of your finances and just personal finance in general, because real estate investing, it's a financial game. It's a financial business. It's not, someone that sews for a living and sells their, scarves or that's a passion thing. Real estate investing, it's about the money. So like you have to know how to manage money before you should get into real estate.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Amelia, it was great to finally get you on and talk to you since we missed each other in real life, even though we were probably standing next to each other 5 times in Orlando not that long ago. Is the best place for people to get in touch with you? One, at your Instagram, which is Amelia Jo REI, and that's regular spelling for Amelia, JOREI. That's on Instagram. And then womeninvestinrealestate.com and the Instagram account, which I think it's WIIRE Community.
Yeah, WIIRE.community. Yeah, that's the best place to reach out to me. I'm most active there. So yeah, I hope you'll come and say hi to me. If you heard me on this podcast, slide into my DMs and let me know. But I love chatting with people on there and would love to see you over on WIIRE Community too.
Yeah, awesome. Amelia, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. That was Amelia McGee, the co-founder of Women Invest in Real Estate. You can find all the information at womeninvestinrealestate.com. No, sorry. Yeah, Women Invest in Real Estate. I was looking at the "in" twice.
You got it.
Yeah. But you can also remember that WIIRE is WIIRE because that's what it stands for. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.